Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. I'm Dr. Dawn Airhart Witte, your guide on a transformative journey of personal development and discussions of universal truths. Join me and a panel of life coaches and spiritual leaders from around the world discussing how to handle some of life's greatest challenges. We will be sharing stories of love, faith, and inspiration with you, our faithful listeners, to live your happiest and most fulfilling life, full of purpose and passion for yourself, your families, and the world. We are here to be the change we wish to see. Let the conversation begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast, formerly known as the Soulful Conversations podcast. We are here to share some of those aha moments that we've had in our lives where we wish we would have known this information years ago, life-changing information that we were going to have a conversation about, share our stories, and hopefully enlighten you and bring this to your awareness in your life. So I am going to introduce our panel today. Laura, I'm going to start with you since you were the first one here. Introduce yourself, tell everybody about yourself, and then Portia, and then Serggio, and then we'll start the conversation.
It's a pleasure, always. I love the conversations that we have before we go on, sometimes even more, because they're just amazing why we do what we do. I'm Laura Brennan Ballet, author of The Science of Empowerment, life transformational coach, etc. I'm at a point now where I'm almost like it matters, but it doesn't matter to express all of this to the listening audience. I am just thrilled to be here with the three of you to talk about ways to bring awareness and insight and inspiration and empower the listening audience. So everyone can reach me at thescienceofempowerment.com, but I'm really ready for this discussion.
Thank you, Laura.
I guess that I'm in the hot seat now, like I always have been. So first and foremost, I extend my gratitude to you, Dawn, for inviting me on your new podcast, The Secrets of Being. We've rebranded, renamed, but it's still the same thing, right? So for those of you who do not know me, I am Portia Booker. I am your host of the Grief Grand Tour TV show on E360 TV, where we embrace gratitude in order to evolve grief. Aside of me being the host, I'm also a serial producer and also the author of Finding Grace Within Grief, Her Transition, My Transformation. And, I couldn't be more excited to have this conversation about signs and synchronicities, because let me be honest, this has been a part of my journey since my whole grief journey. And I think more of us who are aware can definitely share our knowledge and information with people in order for everybody to be more conscious of their surroundings and really live a better life instead of continuing to fall in what I call the hamster wheel of going in circles. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Portia. Serggio, Dr. Serggio.
Okay, my name is Serggio Garcia Guillen, and I am physician, and always, I've been interested into the merging and interaction between science, spirituality, and everything in between, and obviously with the goal and purpose to awaken to what we are, and exploring all the different aspects of who we are and interaction with each other and with this beautiful earth we live in. And thank you so much, Dawn, for inviting me to this conversation. I think we are in a point in the planet and the consciousness of the planet to have more of this, to help us each other with, just to be present, perhaps.
Thank you, Serggio. Well, I chose this topic to talk about today because when I learned that the universe is always speaking to us, sending us signs, symbols, numbers all the time. When we ask for help, there's always an answer, but we are so busy, we don't realize that there are signs that are trying to communicate with us. So several years ago, I read this book by Laura Lynn Jackson, one of my favorite books, and I was flying to Arkansas for a wedding. And I'm going to start off this conversation with a quote by Laura Lynn Jackson from her book called Signs, the Secret Language of the Universe. And it says, it's about connecting you to a very simple but powerful idea that the universe is always sending you signs and messages in order to communicate with you and steer you to a higher life path. It's about how many miraculous and beautiful truths go unseen in our lives, and how, with a subtle yet meaningful shift in our perception, we can begin to see them. So I was on this plane flying to Arkansas for a friend's wedding, and I was reading this book. And in one of her chapters, she says to be very specific when you're asking for a sign. So I was thinking about my father who had passed away in 2000. Like, what sign would I ask for from my dad? And she said, don't make it something like a butterfly, because if you see a butterfly, then you're going to be skeptical and say, well, there are butterflies everywhere. So I drew, for some reason, and I'm not a very good drawer, but I drew a key, like one of those old fashioned library keys, like skeleton keys, and I wrote gold key next to it. So then I get off the plane, my friend picks me up, we go to the hotel. The next morning, I forgot about it. Next morning, she went to take a shower, and I look on her bed, and her keys are laying there, and there is a key that's shaped. It was silver, but it was still the same kind of key. So then the person whose wedding I went to calls right after that. And I said, you are not going to believe what just happened. And I told her the whole story. And she said, oh, that wouldn't surprise me at all. She goes, did I ever tell you I used to have a website called The Golden Keys? And then she pulls up the website, and there are those same keys all over the website. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This really works. So before that, I didn't really even think about asking for signs. And so, Portia and I have conversations all the time. Portia, I want to start with you because we have these conversations all the time. You'll tell me you see something, and I'm like, let's look it up. Let's look it up. So share some of those with us.
Oh my goodness. Let me just start off with the most recent one. Mind you, we are in full swing fall here in Ohio. So the weather is kind of up and down a little bit. We've got some nice warm weather. Then we got a little bit of the downpour rain. Well, the other day when I was getting dressed, literally about to wash my face, I look in my washcloth and there's a red ladybug just circling around. And I took a video of it. I said, no way, there's a ladybug in the house. It's cold as all know what outside. I'm glad I have on a shirt where I don't scare people. You catch my drift. But it's just like, where did this ladybug come from in the middle of fall when it's chilly outside? It's like 30 or 40 degrees. And when I think about ladybugs, I always think of my cousin who transitioned in 2013 because her nickname was Ladybug. And I remember, talk about signs and synchronicities. I remember when we were putting out flyers looking for her and everything. And one of the nights when she was missing, I had a dream about her. And in my dream, I saw her and she was just laughing. I said, Sherelda, I said, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing when everybody is looking for you? Our whole family is out on the street putting up flyers. And that made me realize, and I think about it now because I didn't understand it then, she was already gone. She was already at peace. She was happy where she was, and when I think about now, how I've built on my self-awareness, even when I think about my mom's transition, and Dawn, we've talked about this, my mom's transition day was 7/7/22 at 10:10 p.m. And when I think about that and how I was like, whoa, the doubles of numbers, the sequence, right? The portal opening, right? And Dawn, I remember I shared with you the week of her transition, how I literally asked, I said, God, send me a sign of some sort. And now you guys, we don't see bats this time of year. Well, during the summer, we don't. But I was walking down the street with my dog, taking Mr. Fletcher out for one of 4 rounds of pee o'clock, of course. And I see a dead bat on the ground. And I'm like, a dead bat on the ground, literally the day before my mom's transition. And that told me right there was a change about to happen in my life. And I know a lot of people might think about certain signs carrying, I guess you can say, like a negative or positive omen. But the way I look at it, news is how you take it. It's not so much about the positive or negative. Like I could have easily associated the dead bat as something terrible. But in my mind, it correlated as that's what I asked for. I asked for a sign, a direct one, whether it was a dead bat, whether it was a deer, whether it was a ladybug, whether it was an eagle that I saw the other day, whether it's the numbers, the 444, the 555. I think when we ask for a sign, we just have to be open to receiving it and being aware of it and not, I guess you could say, correlating it with negative or positive.
So Laura, what are your experiences with some signs that have happened in your life?
Yeah, so I love this conversation for this exact reason. Portia and I talk about this, as you do, all the time. There's just these synchronicities of what happens while we're talking. We've even had a couple of very unique things happen right in front of our face live when we were talking about it. I think, as Portia just said, the receptivity of new perspectives is so important here. Not everyone knows what it feels like to experience asking God force, universal force, spiritual energy, and then receiving it. I think it's a very unique way of talking about when we become aware of something, such as, I want to remember something about my mom. She used to love this flower. And all of a sudden, you go to a restaurant with friends and the flower's on a vase in the middle of the table. Many people don't look at that as any big deal, any correlation. But when we start to hone in on the awareness that it just may be, again, God force, universal force, spiritual energy coming to us, now you start to open up that doorway. And that happens quite often. So I've been doing this since I was a kid. I've been playing with numbers and finding things. My brother and I used to love to go on treasure hunts, and we would ask the universe in the middle of the woods where we grew up, I want to find a nickel, heads up, or I want to find a certain kind of feather, or a stick that has specific markings on it. Like I don't know why, but we just were really in tune to this. I do this all the time. I've actually now started playing with time and seeing if I could speed it up differently and slow it down than what's at face value. But for me, the number 37 has followed me since I don't know, maybe 4 years old. And so much so that when I met my husband, I would tell him, watch, just watch. And we will be listening to movies, TV shows, comedy, it doesn't matter. That number comes up all the time. So I really do think that there are, again, spiritual messages. I think there are very heartfelt connections to those messages. And I think when we just open our mind and our heart to being receptive to the fact that the universe really does have our back and really does effort to let us know that we're not alone and that there is so many points of connectivity happening, just open up. And even if you ask for a blue feather in the middle of winter in New England, when there's no birds flying around, and you find one, there you go. Believe in it before you see it. And that's the magic, I think, of synchronicity.
Laura, I want to chime in really quick to what you just said, because when I think about sometimes when I'm in a period of confliction, where I'm like, okay, I don't know what direction to go. Is it this way or that way? And sometimes I'll be walking or doing something, and all of a sudden, when I'm thinking of, okay, here's the solution, then all of a sudden I'll hear a bunch of birds start singing and chirping, and I'm like, oh, that's the answer. That's definitely the answer. And to go on to what you said too, Laura, what I've started doing, I have a commonplace journal in my phone. So those of you who don't know what a commonplace journal is, it's where you take notes of different experiences you have throughout the day. So the day that I saw the ladybug, I put the day 11, whatever. And then I put everything that I encountered, the number 444, the bald eagle, the ladybug, the hawk feather. I put everything, and I've been doing this since May of this year, and it blows my mind when I've noticed kind of like that pattern, what you mentioned, Laura, about the 37, the 37. For me, it's been the number 9. The number 9 has followed me everywhere. And every time I notice that I'm about to embark on a new transition or journey, I see symbols of 9. So I either see 818, 919, 1010, 1111. So I see variations of either the number 9 or those combinations of numbers. So I'm there with you.
And again, it's the opening. It's the opening of our mind and our consciousness, our spirituality. We all have a different lexicon, but we know what we're saying. Be open to something beyond just the human condition and the limited mindset, and really have fun and let the universe express itself through all of her mechanisms, and expect miracles, right? Expect divinity, expect elevation, and moments of empowerment of how connected we really are to the nature of those synchronicities.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah. I mean, being open to it, just even, I didn't even know it was a thing, so many years ago. And now that I know that it's a thing, I keep seeing how it shows up in my life over and over again. Sergio, I know you've got some great things to share.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit like long ago, I heard somebody saying about how you see the world, how you see the existence, even the beginning of the beginnings. And we can see from science, for one part of the science, because science tends to be very specific and it's very useful too, but it's a tool. And seeing the world like the Big Bang, how everything was created as a big explosion, and like it's a little chaotic because it's rocking everything and crashing things, and if we translate that to our lives, it can be also chaotic. But what if we put a little bit, we open our minds, as Laura was saying, and we see as this energy or this creation is also conscious, has consciousness, has love, has harmony, and has other different aspects like we share with it. And we see how everything is, despite what of the chaos we see behind or in other aspects, there is a harmony, there is an intention and purpose to everything that's happening now, outside and in. Before, I think in anatomy, physiology, when you saw perhaps like a couple of hundred years ago, you see the human body, it was a mess. I mean, how to harmonize that? How you see all these different cells moving around and doing things, and as well we do it like people with different characteristics, races, or different ways we categorize things may seem chaotic, and yet there's harmony as we understand that. So I think part of the acceptance of what is happening as is happening is to observe, like, perhaps the things are not really bad. Maybe we're making bad as we are interpreting the things as that. So when you are open to miracles, to coincidences, to things like are helping you, it's also reinforcing the path you are taking. So there is a free will and willpower to apply to that harmony and this chaos at the same time. So you are discovering the chaos never was a chaos at the beginning. Mm-hmm. It was the way you are interpreting with your mind, your conditioned mind, that things are happening. So coincidences start happening more around. I mean, we're happening already. Just you are noticing them.
I like to think of them as synchronicities instead of coincidences, because I think everything happens for a reason, to show us something. I mean, for example, if you look at the clock and it's 11:11 or 1:11 or 2:22 or 3:33, think about, what were you just thinking? What were you just thinking when you glanced over and happened to look at that number? There's a meaning and significance behind that. Only you can interpret what that means for you, but it's like that universe's way of saying, pay attention to what you were just thinking right now. Be mindful of that.
Even if, I love how Sergio just said, because I have a very close friend that used to say coincidence all the time, until she couldn't say that anymore, because it just, when we were together, certain things were very evident that what was happening. And I really do think the term coincidence, where it originated, is like two angles that fit together like perfectly. There's like a spiritual kind of terminology behind that, or if you look into bio kind of geometry, right? All the angles that are in nature. And as talking about the body, Sergio, all of what happens inside, for anyone to think that it is a coincidence that we exist in the way that we do, It's not. There is a natural synchronicity to it. And whether we look at it from a scientific point of view or we look at it from a God point of view, I think once we open up, and even as Portia said, it's not a negative or a positive, right? You can see, say, a praying mantis, and you can read Japanese belief system. Their philosophy thinks that represents death. But if I see one, to me, it may represent a transition, a dying away, or a releasing of a pattern or something that didn't fit into the rebirth. So I think we all are sharing this beautiful sentiment that we can choose how we look at how and what shows up in our life, and be aware of the mindset around the perception of what's showing up. And as you just said, Dawn, what is it that I was just thinking about? What am I looking for? What was bothering me, or what was going very beautifully? And how is that showing of a number or an animal, or a coin, doesn't matter, whatever it is. What is going on with me asking to see it, and then it appears? What is the greater story and the greater meaning and purpose behind having fun and exploring the power, right, of attraction, the power of manifestation, and our individual awareness to how we're perceiving, right, synchronicity or numbers? So I think there's so many amazing branches off of this tree. I'm all about having fun and exploring and being excited about what is the universe showing me now to help advance the way I think, the way I feel, the way I move through my days, in order to be in service, right, to those who are receptive to growing and learning. So if we talk about synchronicity, and we all have these amazing connections to that, there's someone that's going to be like, I'll be darned, I've had that, but maybe I never heard about it talked in this way, or maybe I never had the opportunity to look at it this way. So I think it's so important just to look at nature, look at the power of our connection with it, and what is it trying to tell us?
I love that. I shared with Laura before we started recording this story, and I'm going to make it pretty brief, but we're working on a retreat, The Secrets of Being. All of us are presenters in Costa Rica next April 25th through the 28th. We're so excited about it. I was in South Africa over the summer, and I met this beautiful woman. She's a doctor, a neuroscientist. Her name's Dr. Shiksha Gallo. And I really wanted her to be part of this retreat. Now, she lives in South Africa, so I thought it was a pretty big ask, to come all the way to Costa Rica, but I asked her anyway. And she said, I told her I'd send her more information about it. So the next day when I saw her at this conference, she said, you're not going to believe this, but last night when I went to my hotel room and I was checking my messages, I got an email from a doctor's group in Costa Rica asking me when I was coming to do a training in Costa Rica. So it happened the same day I asked her. A few weeks later, after I got home from my trip, she said, you're not going to believe what I found in my room. And there was a hot air balloon that said Costa Rica on it. So we knew that this was meant to happen. She was supposed to be speaking at another conference. The dates weren't lining up. I couldn't move our dates, but the other place did move their dates to accommodate her. So the stars aligned. She was meant to speak. She was given these signs and these synchronicities to say, yes, do this. And if you weren't paying attention, you might think, oh, well, that's a coincidence. Was it a coincidence, or was it a sign saying, yes, yes, this is your path. Say yes to this. Portia, what do you have to say about that?
When I think about just the phrase coincidences, I think of a mathematical equation, how we always want to have an explanation. Everything has to have a deeper explanation than just letting it be as it is, right? Because when we go about our lives, for example, like with me, when I see different signs now, I'm just like, oh my God, like, what does this mean? What is this trying to tell me in this moment? And then I'll start kind of, like I said, I put it in my commonplace journal, and then I go back through it to match the different dates now. Like, okay, I noticed on, any day that ends in a 9, there's more signs than on a day that ends in a 4. So cool. I think that it's in our life, I think we just have to be open And then let me go back to my gratitude. You have to find gratitude in what the answer is that you get to, because I think a lot of times we want, of course, only the positive, right? But for me, like with the bat, I was grateful. I was grateful in that moment. Like, you know what? This is the sign that I asked for before my mom was making her transition, and this is what I got. And then 2 days after my mom made her transition, the monarch butterfly was flying in my front yard. And that's when I told her, I said, Mom, make sure you come visit me. And sure enough, the butterfly was just moseying. And I said, I'm like, okay. And then just like in October of this year, right? Normally here in Ohio, we're pretty cool around this time of year. But I was out in the front yard taking Mr. Fletcher for another round of pee o'clock. And this time I didn't take my phones with me. I left both of my phones in the house, both of them. And as I'm walking down the street, I see something coming towards me, and I'm like, okay, is this a frisbee? What is this coming towards me? Mind you, I have my glasses on, so don't check my prescription, y'all. I promise that I can see. But it was at a distance. Well, then all of a sudden, this big, huge monarch, the size of my hand, just moseys in. I said, and I remember I distinctly was missing my mom earlier before I took Fletcher. And I said, Ma, I just want a sign. I want something from you. Just give me something. And sure enough, the universe responded more than once. I saw 7 monarchs that day, 7.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I think number one, when we get the signs that we get, when we ask for them, be grateful no matter what they are, because I don't think we realize how much we truly have to be grateful for in this world, right? Grateful people are intentional, and grateful people also experience more abundance and flourish in their life. At least I've seen it in my own life, right? Dawn knows this. I find gratitude in anything, any and everything. And I think if we apply that to our life and be open to the signs that come into our life, whether it's the dead bat, whether it's the cardinal singing, whether it's a blue jay, whether it's hawk feathers or an eagle, or in the numbers, the 444, 555, the dimes, the quarters, the pennies, any of those things, if we find gratitude in that, even when our life appears to be a little in shambles, we have to ask ourselves, what have we truly lost in this moment, when truly there's been a gain?
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So Sergio, do you have any signs or stories where you asked for something and you saw it that you can't explain it in the mere physical?
That's very interesting. I just, Portia, what you were sharing is reminded me a little bit something I almost forgotten, but now is and a few years ago my father was in the hospital with diagnosis of ALS, and we have to take some decisions because there was something difficult there with the hospital staff, and I was like asking for help, and I went to the backyard, and I was like, I need to have a decision here, but really I need help. And the moment I remember, like, I almost finished seeing help, blue jay came just in front of me in the tree and looked at me, and it was like, really? I mean, like, they never came too close to me, and it's like just a little, like almost a minute, I think, was over there just looking at me in different angles and fly away. Okay, well, it's a strength. I reinterpreted that as a strength, I know how to do, and that was very, very helpful. And I just want to say something about this retreat, and I am involved in contemplative medicine for some years, and sometimes we say in terms of the retreat, the retreats are small retreats, and the life in general is the big retreat. So we do this for enhancing or empowering ourselves to focus in the path as we breathe in and breathe out. So the retreat is helping us to have the elements we need to cultivate later on, not just in this retreat, in this small retreat, but also in the big retreat. The retreat, like Portia was mentioning too, the retreat, like, is every day, every moment, and our thoughts and our emotions, and the interaction with the people we love and the world. So in these retreats, for me, is a way to cultivate the bigger mind, the expansive mind, to connect with the expansive mind of the world. There are many things happening. Perhaps there are many different layers between our mind and the world of the universe mind. But to have this synchronicity, we have to sometimes to cultivate that approaches. So that's why we need help from others. And in my case, with different people, but also in the bigger retreat, we are learning from each other, because everybody in their own way are masters in their own lives.
Thank you for that. And I want to echo what you just said. I mean, one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, one of the reasons we're having the retreat is to share some of these aha moments that we've had in our lives. And like, oh, I wish I would have known that. I always say this to Portia because she's younger than my daughters, but I always say, I wish I would have known the things that you know as a 31-year-old versus, I didn't learn them until I was like 50. My life would have been different had I been aware of these things. So I want to share these with people, because sometimes when you're feeling despair and hopelessness and you don't know, just ask. Just know that you've got, whether you believe in angels or spirit guides or, whatever your belief system is, know that you can ask and it will be answered. And it's not going to necessarily be answered in words. Sometimes you'll get words, but other times you're going to get signs and symbols. Look for them. And I promise you, the more you're aware of them, the more you're going to see them over and over and over again.
I want to share one really quick, Dawn. Oh, go ahead, Laura. You want me to go?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So it's funny you bring this up, Dawn, because I remember, and my brother's upstairs, but I'm going to share this story. I remember one time my brother called me. He was at work and he was telling me that he was having some type of health scare. He's like, well, I'm just going to wait until I get off work for the day and go to the hospital. And I literally, I kid you guys not, I literally was so frustrated. I was like, really? I'm like, you could literally be dead in an hour. It's like, I cannot have you gone too. We just lost our mom. I cannot have you gone too. So literally what I did, I literally was in the kitchen. And those of you who know, in my kitchen, I have a picture of my great grandmother and my mom right above the TV. And there's two words next in between the picture. It says faith and love are in between. And I literally just shouted in the kitchen. I said, mommy, work it out. I literally said, mommy, work it out. And I think, Dawn, I told you this story. And so not even 20 minutes goes by and my brother calls me back and he says, okay, Portia, my boss is on her way. I'm on my way to the house so you can take me to the hospital. I said, thank the Lord, because I literally was like, I didn't know what to do. It's like, normally if my mom was here, my mom would have just been, full throttle Sharon, like, you need to do this, this, and this, but she's not here. But I put it in her hands. I said, mommy, work it out. And even in situations like that, I chose, number one, to surrender it to the universe. Because I think a lot of times when we're being tested, kind of like Serggio, when you were talking about with your dad having that health scare and you needed help, but you didn't know exactly where to go, who to turn to. And then all of a sudden you're like, I need help. And you surrendered it. And then the answer came. The same for me. So I think the reminder here is, number one, when you ask for it, allow it to come. Don't block it, in a sense, because I think sometimes we want to overstep and create the outcome of our own instead of, like Laura, what you mentioned about being present, and same thing with you, Serggio, allowing the miracles of the universe to work on our behalf. So I just wanted to add that really quick.
And I think it's a challenge for the average person who, number one, isn't naturally aligned maybe to believing and then fill in that list. I just think for those who are listening that don't quite understand what that relationship feels like, to trust, to surrender, to ask, and to be receptive, not for the outcome, but for the process of the asking and then the opening of what is to come. And some people could be like, what do you mean, Serggio, you had heaviness in your heart about your dad, and you look at a blue jay, and all of a sudden that blue jay represents something. But yes, it really is that beautiful and that profound. And again, when you use even the word divinity, you can put that into a religious context, a God force, or a universal force. But it is a divine expression of humanity looking at its reflection in order to gain something to help you through a process. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a blue jay and the way he's moving his head that gave you a moment of reprieve from the momentum of the grief and allowed you to catch your breath to then enter back into the room or the situation. I think it really just, again, it's open up the sensory system. I'm not going to say stop thinking, but suspend the way you've always thought and open up to the possibility of how something new can come in. And yes, it can be through nature. It's what we are made of, and it is all around us. So learn how to connect to that ever expression of what it's trying to tell us. And it can come in a coin, a feather, a bird, a friend, a flower, a number. Just let it come in and let it be, and then move about. And then when you see it again, start to understand that that is some aspect of yourself awakening and beginning to open up and to trust in that energy. We are energy beings. We are made up of absolute vibration, and so is everything else around us. Match the vibration to the vibration, and that's where the miracle or the synchronicity or the answer, the gratitude, appreciation, the divinity, the grace of that situation can come through.
Oh, wow, Laura, that was a lot. There's a lot of wisdom in what you just said. And again, I really wanted to do this specific topic for this episode because once I realized, that I was getting signs all the time, but I was completely oblivious to all of it. I didn't know what anything meant. I didn't think repeating numbers meant anything. But now that I'm tapped into it and I'm open to it, I see it all the time. And there's always some kind of significance, always some kind of meaning behind the signs that I see, whether it's an animal or the repeating numbers or, a key or, whatever it is. I mean, one day I was walking down the street and I still have it here. I see this playing card just randomly on the sidewalk. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this. I'm going to go home and I'm going to look up what that means. There's some symbolism here. And there sure was. There was a message in there at that moment that I had been like struggling with, thinking about. And that was kind of an answer. So again, be open and aware, because I promise you they exist all around us at all times. So, if I'm going to let everybody finish up with a closing, last reminder of what you want to say. And then, if you want to learn more about the Secrets of Being, go to secretsofbeing.com, where you'll see information about our retreat, which again is going to be in beautiful Costa Rica. We're all going to be there along with, there's going to be 15 of us total. And we're coming from all the way from South Africa. We've got people from all over the United States, all coming together to create a beautiful community of like-minded, heart-centered people that want to be the change they wish to see in the world, make a significant impact in the world, and grow and explore together, and just learn some of the secrets of being. So Laura, you guys can popcorn style however you want to do, but make sure you let people know where to find you and how to connect with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And again, just absolute gratitude for all of us being together, and Dawn really creating this community, because it isn't a network, even though it is a network of community-minded people, but it really is the style of human being that you have attracted in, and we are all attracting together. And again, it is not a coincidence that the 14 or 15 people that are coming to this retreat are who we are. And this is what I love. We're actually showing in real time that it isn't a coincidence, that every person that shows up, there is a point and a meaning and a purpose to it. So again, www.thescienceofempowerment.com. I'm all over LinkedIn and Facebook, and The Shift & Co., which is a global podcast, and I'm part of this community. And just anyone that needs any help, any guidance, just even a point of conversation to help elevate your awareness, reach out, because that's personally why I'm here. So thank you again, everyone, for sharing this time.
Thank you, Laura. Portia?
All right. First and foremost, again, Dawn, I extend my gratitude all the time because these conversations, you know, I always felt like I was an outcast. Like I thought differently. Like, what do you mean these numbers have meaning? There's meaning in animals and number and coins and things like that. But now I feel like I'm at home. You know, I feel like I can just have these conversations and not be looked at like I have like a white head all over my face type of thing. You know, like now I just feel at home. You know, for our audience, I want to just reinforce number one, find gratitude in any and everything, because the universe is always looking out for us. And Laura, I mean, and Dawn, it's funny you bring up Laura Lynn Jackson's book Signs, because I just started listening to it today. And I've just been engulfed in it 100% because it really speaks to, and I think she even said it, there is no coincidence why you picked up this book today. And, you know, when I think about just my journey of getting to where I'm at, gratitude has been my foundation for everything. Gratitude is the life jacket that keeps us afloat during adverse situations. And when we think about the word adversity, right, I'm going to close on this. When we think about the word adversity, look at adverse as adding another verse to your life experience to share with other people around you. So if those of you who want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram at Portia the Grief Grantor. I'm also on Facebook, Portia Booker, and also LinkedIn. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Portia. Serggio?
Well, yes, I want to mention something about the trade and what we share for the public. And it's like we recognize like who we are not. And in this case, just I want to address the spiritual bypassing or anything like is what we are not. We are reinforcing what we really are, who really are. So I think it's important to elevate ourselves based in reality. And I think it's one of the goals, and personally, and I think for this group to rise above that. And in my case, you can find me in thetahealing.com with Dr. Serggio with WG, and Instagram as well, and Facebook. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Serggio. And thank you, viewers, for listening to this episode of the Secrets of Being podcast. Again, you can find us at thesecretsofbeing.com. And please reach out if you have a topic that you would like us to discuss and help you overcome. Please share it with us, because that's why we've created this space, is to help people through life's ups and downs, because life is got ups and downs, but the whole journey of life is a beautiful one if we look at it in that way. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Secrets of Being podcast. We appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more inspiring content. For further inspiration, visit thesecretsofbeing.com and join our community. Until next time, stay inspired and keep unlocking the secrets of being.